Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Football, and it is December 13th, 2017. The semester is just about over. It is finals week, but we're here to talk some sports, specifically the New York Knicks and the New York Yankees. But I really wanted to dive into this Knicks game last night, the old classic rivalry between the Los Angeles Lakers, who traveled across country to the Mecca, Madison Square Garden, to face off against the Knicks, where the Knicks squeaked out a 113-109 victory. Exciting fashion in overtime. Now, I really wanted to talk about this game because this was that first glimpse where I felt like the future of the Knicks in front of us were producing and winning games against teams that, I don't want to say are overly talented, but teams that are kind of big in the spotlight. This was a game that was nationally televised on ESPN. And this was also a game where down the stretch we saw young players like Frank Ntilikina, the rookie Phil Jackson drafted, play significant minutes. He played 28 minutes and played in the important overtime period and at the end of the fourth quarter. This was a very exciting game. Let's start from the beginning. The Knicks at the end of the first quarter were down 29-25. It was kind of a sloppy game, a lot of missed shots. I mean, Brandon Ingram, who was a very young, talented player for the Lakers, started 0-10 from the field until he hit a big three-point shot at the end of the third quarter. The Knicks fell down by about 10 at one point in the middle part of this game. I think it was the second quarter, but they ended up battling back in this game. And in the second half, it was a back-and-forth affair between the two teams. And we saw Kristaps Porzingis, the future of this team, playing incredibly well. He played 40 minutes in this game, put up 37 points, hit 5 three-pointers, had 11 rebounds, 5 blocked shots. He blocked Lonzo Ball, who came out in this game, and he had his moments as well. We saw his father sitting next to Spike Lee, giving him high fives and running up and down the court every time Lonzo Ball did something crazy. Now, we know LeVar Ball is kind of the talk of the NBA. You put a microphone in front of him, he's always going to say something that is interesting. So the media kind of placates to this individual because they know people are going to comment on him. He's going to drive ratings up. And if you keep putting a microphone in front of him, he's going to keep saying ridiculous things. I kind of feel bad for Lonzo Ball. I don't like saying that because I don't like weighing in on family issues, if you even want to call it an issue. But his dad kind of writes the check, and Lonzo has to cash it with his play. And it kind of gives Lonzo this big persona, but he doesn't act that way. He doesn't have this huge ego. He's more introverted, where you look at his father, who is much more about the attention. So there's this huge spotlight on Lonzo. Lonzo came out and he had 17 points in this game. He hit 3 three-pointers. We know he's been struggling with his shot early on in his rookie campaign, but he had a couple really nice plays. I want to say he had a nice alley-oop. He found Brook Lopez, an important three-point shot in this game, hit those three-pointers. So good for that kid. Kyle Kuzma, another young player, hit that very important three-pointer to send the game to overtime at the end of the fourth quarter when KP ended up missing the three-point shot with 0.5 seconds left. At that point in the game, I was like, oh, geez, these are the games you cannot lose. The Lakers are 10-15 at this point. They're coming cross-country on a road trip to play us. We just ended up beating Atlanta, another crappy team. We lost on the road. We can't win on the road, which is the Knicks' biggest issues. We need this team to put it together. And I was really happy to see how they played in overtime. Very, very big plays by Michael Beasley. No, let's not forget. Michael Beasley was the second overall pick in the 2008 draft, just behind Derrick Rose. This guy was very, very highly touted coming out of the Jayhawks system. And he's dealt with marijuana issues and things of that nature, but he has that mentality of kind of having a chip on his shoulder. He comes to the Knicks, a team that doesn't really have high expectations. And in this overtime, he really showed up well. He only played 22 minutes in this game, but he played all the important minutes down the stretch. It also helped that Enes Kanter was dealing with a hip issue. He only ended up playing 26 minutes, ended up with a double-double. But Beasley went with sort of a small ball approach to play against this Lakers team that had Kuzma out there, Lonzo Ball out there, Brandon Ingram, a lot of these athletic young players down the stretch. You also saw Julius Randle as well. But Beasley made a couple huge plays down the stretch. Courtney Lee made that great play at the baseline. He saved the ball from going out of bounds, found Doug McDermott under the rim, and Doug McDermott almost missed the easy layup. But those baskets towards the end of that game were the defining factor in this team securing a victory in a very winnable matchup at home. It would have been very, very piss poor if they came out and they lost this game. You need to win these kind of games. You're in a playoff hunt right now. If the season were to end, you're the 9th seed and you're out. But there's plenty of basketball to be played. But I was very enthusiastic about watching this team because of the young players that were out there making plays. The two guys on this team that you're building around, that are playing right now because Tim Hardaway is out with the stress strain or whatever he has going on with his leg. The two players are Porzingis and Ntilikina. And French Frank played important minutes, like I said. And he hit a huge three in this game, which you love to see because he struggled with his shooting percentage as well. The thing that you love about French Frank is he's very aware of the court. Defensively, he's sound. He has very, very long arms, and he uses that to his advantage. But shooting the ball has not been his forte. But KP and him down the stretch were very, very pivotal in this victory. Now, and I really bring this up because what if, say, 8 years from now, the Knicks win a championship? Now, I know I'm really thinking aggressively when I think like that because the Knicks haven't won since the 72-73 season. My father was like a child at that time. I wasn't even a thought. I wasn't even a twinkle in his eye yet. But say that. And it's led by 19-year-old French Frank, which he is right now. At that point, it will be, 26-year-old French Frank? 27? And Kristaps Porzingis, both draft picks of Phil Jackson. This guy we ran out of town, this joke of a team president that he was. Does his reputation increase in a positive manner if this team becomes great because of the draft picks of Porzingis and French Frank? Do we start looking at Phil in a more positive light? I think it's an interesting question because he is such a laughingstock around here. His arrogance, the way he handled the Carmelo Anthony situation, the way he threw him under the bus several times. And granted, I'm not the biggest Carmelo fan by any stretch of the imagination, but just by doing that, you're acknowledging to the rest of the NBA players, I am not somebody you want to play for. Because if we don't see eye to eye, I'm going to throw you under the bus on Twitter like a passive-aggressive old man who is not in touch with anything that is going on in reality. Because that's what he did to Carmelo Anthony. But say 8 years from now, and say Phil's still kicking it. I mean, we don't want to think morbidly, but the guy is an older man who has some health issues. Porzingis and Frank leading the Knicks to the promised land. I mean, when you look over at the 76ers, it looks like they're going to be having a core group of players that are going to be a real pain in the rear end to beat in the future with Joel Embiid. And you haven't even seen Markelle Fultz yet. Ben Simmons killing it, but that's beside the point. Just say hypothetically it happens. Do we look at Phil Jackson and say, wow, Phil drafted these two guys? It was literally like one of the last things he did was draft French Frank. We fired him 2 weeks later. Great on him. I don't know if we'll ever do that. I mean, he was very, very close to trading Kristaps Porzingis when Porzingis did not show up to those exit meetings last year. So we're going to have to keep context in that. And I don't want Phil to be getting unwarranted credit. Remember, the Knicks had the 4th pick in that draft. And if it wasn't for the 76ers taking Jahlil Okafor and the Lakers taking D'Angelo Russell, I would have imagined the Knicks probably didn't go with KP. But they definitely made the right choice, therefore you have to give them somewhat credit there. But everything else was an absolute, unmitigated disaster in the Phil Jackson era. I hope 5 years from now, Frank Ntilikina and Porzingis are still killing it, but you know the turnover in the NBA. You know how people move around. I think Porzingis is here for the long run. Ntilikina, it's way too early to tell. But last night could be one of those game scripts where you see Ntilikina being trusted. Could be something that we see for years to come. And they secured a victory. And I think that's something that you can build upon in the NBA. I know the Lakers right now are 10-16. Not the greatest team. They're on a road trip. But Porzingis dominated like you expected him to. Ntilikina hit big shots in this game that helped secure the win. He facilitated the ball, had 5 assists, and he's also got them sticky hands. He only had 1 steal in this game, but we've seen him get multiple steals in these games, and those turnovers are important. When you win the turnover margin, it increases your chances of victory. So it was very, very motivating. I hope Enes Kanter will be fine after he exited that game and did not come back in. He's a pivotal part of this team. Hopefully Timmy Hardaway Jr. will come back eventually, because the Knicks are going to need to start securing some of these victories. We have Melo coming back to the Garden on Saturday. And again, last episode I talked about how Melo should come off the bench for the Thunder. It doesn't make any sense starting this guy anymore. His one skill set is to score the basketball. Have him be a spark plug off the bench, so you don't have to rely on him defensively against the lesser, quote-unquote, lesser competition. He can provide 20 points a game with 25 minutes. Don't play this guy 32 minutes a game and have that one basketball be shared between Russell Westbrook and Paul George and Carmelo Anthony. Spread your talent out. We saw Russell Westbrook take that team to the playoffs with nobody else. Now he has 2 other solid scorers in the NBA, one being a superstar in Paul George. So spread that talent out, put Melo on the second unit. Maybe they'll do that against the Knicks, but I doubt it. And egos aside. But anyways, before the Thunder game, the Knicks have the Nets. That's tomorrow. Battle of New York. It is in Brooklyn. The Knicks should win this matchup, but we'll see how it transpires. The Nets have been beat up all season. They've been beat up. They've been injured. They're 11-15 right now. So record-wise, they're only a few games behind the Knicks. The Knicks need to win games like this. Now, technically, this is a quote-unquote road game. The Knicks have struggled significantly on the road. They are 1-8. They've won 1 road game, losing to the Bulls over the weekend, who have won 3 in a row. Look at that. But need to win tomorrow night against the Nets if we want to squeak into the playoffs to eventually get swept by the Celtics and Cavaliers, because that's what's going to happen. But you know what? You build and you build and you build. Golden State, when they first started out with their young players, Klay Thompson, Draymond Green, Steph Curry, they weren't winning playoff series all the time. I remember them losing to the Clippers, getting challenged by teams like Memphis. Now, I am not saying the Knicks are the next Golden State Warriors by any stretch of the imagination, but we have a core piece in Porzingis. We'll see what we have as the season transpires with Ntilikina. But basketball, somewhat exciting right now. I mean, I think you always need an enemy in the NBA. We saw the Cavaliers struggle in the beginning of this year, but they mounted a really long winning streak, and now they're 20-8, and you have the Celtics at 23-6, the Raptors at 17-8, and then after that it kind of falls off, with the Bucks at 15-10, the Pacers at 16-11. But none of those guys really jump off at you. In the Western Conference, the Rockets are killing it. The Warriors are a little beat up right now with Steph Curry dealing with the ankle injury. A couple of the other stars, Draymond Green and Kevin Durant, have been nicked up, but the Rockets are 21-4. Warriors are 22-6. Spurs are 19-9. T-Wolves are 16-12. Nuggets 15-12. And then you got the Blazers at 13-13. So you have 3 teams in the Western Conference if the season were to end right now being 500 or worse. That says something. And in the Eastern Conference, you have the Wizards, the 76ers, and the Pistons only a game above 500. They would all make the playoffs right now. The Knicks would be out. They're 14-13. That's just because they've lost to the Pistons before. It's interesting when you look at it. A lot of talent at these top teams. The parity in the NBA, I've been saying it for years. It's not as prevalent as the other sports. That's kind of why the NBA is very predictable. The Celtics, the Cavs, the Warriors, the Rockets, the Spurs, those are the top of the crop. Cream of the crop teams. And you got the teams like the Knicks and stuff like that. They're just mediocre. But I'm going to watch them. That's my team. Love that team. And I look over at my New York Rangers. They share the building with the New York Knicks, the Madison Square Garden. They were lucky to get a point against the Stars. They lost in a shootout. I remember the last episode we did, I was talking about how they were down 1-0. Rangers were able to steal a point, but they ended up losing in the shootout. I didn't even see the puck go in when Jason Spezza had that backhand. I was looking for the puck. I was like, did it go over? Did it go in? But it ended up going in. Pavlich played really well in that game. The Rangers really shouldn't even have gotten a point in that game. The Stars outplayed the Rangers, but Andre Pavlich played well. And that's what you want to see out of these backup goaltenders that we've had. Hank's old. He can't play 70 games in the season anymore. That's not something that's viable for this individual. And we've seen Cam Talbot, Antti Ranta, and now Andre Pavlich play important games that help the Rangers get to the playoffs. The Rangers are going to need all the help they can get. All the help they can get. Today they face the Senators. We saw the 7-game series the Rangers lose to the Senators last year. So this is a quote-unquote rivalry game. The Senators have struggled this year. They only have 25 points. And then it gets tricky because Friday you have the Kings coming to the Garden. The Kings, another quote-unquote rivalry game if you want to go back to the 2014 playoffs. But you have the Kings coming to the Garden, and they're playing very well this year. They have 43 points. They're scoring the puck at the Rapid. They're playing good, sound hockey over there in the Pacific Division. And the thing that's tricky is after that Kings game, the Rangers got to go up and play the Bruins in Boston for a 5 o'clock start. So less than 24 hours later, they got to go travel to Boston, play the Bruins. That's going to be a hell of a game. Then you have the Ducks at the Garden on Tuesday. So none of these teams are in division. Got 2 conference games, 2 out-of-conference games. But 2 teams that are going to be traveling to you to play. Now, I know the Kings are a very good team. I know the Ducks are sitting there at 33 points. They're about as comparable to the Rangers when it comes to record. Rangers at 35. They need to find ways to win these games, though. They need to find ways to win as many games as they can. The Metro Division, I went on a rant last week about it. The Jackets, 39. The Capitals, 39. The Devils, 38. The Islanders, 37. The Rangers, 35. The Penguins, 35. And even the crappy teams have over 30 points. The Flyers, the crappy, quote-unquote crappy. The Flyers and the Hurricanes. And watch out for the Flyers because they've won 4 in a row. It's not something that you can sleep on. You can't take any nights off. You need to be on your game and play your best hockey even here in December. Every point's going to matter at the end. The Metropolitan Division is no joke. The rest of the NHL, they have teams that you can just beat up on. Not the Metropolitan Division. I mean, you have the Coyotes not even have 20 points yet. The Sabres have 22 points. The Senators, 25. The worst team in the Metro has 31. It's the Flyers and the Hurricanes who are tied with it. So winning these games are pivotal. We need Lundqvist to be on his game. We need the defense to solidify themselves. And we need to play smart hockey. But what I wanted to also talk about before we get out of here is, because I haven't touched on it yet, and I know we don't talk a lot of baseball, because, I mean, baseball is my 4th sport. I know baseball, but I don't know it as well as the other 3 sports. I don't follow it as intently. I couldn't name the starting 9 players on the Brewers, things of that nature. I can sit here and I can name you the backup guards for the Browns or something like that, but when it comes to baseball, it kind of brings me back to my childhood, if I'm being honest, because we grew up, we loved baseball in my household. I was a gigantic Yankee fan. Growing up in the 90s, I was able to experience all those championships with the Core 4, with Derek Jeter, Jorge Posada, and then you can go back to Scott Brocious, Tino Martinez. I remember all of these times, Bernie Williams. Those guys, they meant a lot to me growing up. So I do love, there's something pure about baseball to me. But man, what the Yankees pulled off, how exciting is this? The Yankees acquire Giancarlo Stanton from the Derek Jeter-led Miami Marlins. How nuts is that? Now you're going to have Stanton, who last year hit 59 home runs, was the National League MVP, in the same lineup as Aaron Judge, as Gary Sanchez, as a healthy Greg Bird, Didi Gregorius. This lineup is going to be absolutely ridiculous. The Yankees traded 2 mediocre prospects that don't really jump out off the page to you, for Giancarlo Stanton, along with Starlin Castro, who I liked Starlin Castro. I thought Starlin Castro was a very solid second baseman. But you're acquiring a 28-year-old superstar who was the MVP of the National League last year. And you didn't give up Gleyber Torres. You didn't give up Clint Frazier. You didn't give up any of your top-notch prospects. A lot of people are upset about this. And Derek Jeter kind of went on the record talking out of both sides of his mouth, kind of, which he's taking a lot of heat for. But when he bought that team, he had to know just the mess the Miami Marlins have been. With Jeffrey Loria as their owner, you can go back to the owner previous to that. They've gone in complete tear-down rebuild mode 3 times now in a decade. And Giancarlo Stanton didn't want anything to do with that. Giancarlo Stanton's had a no-trade clause. He was able to get that 13-year, $325 million deal where the Marlins are going to pick up $30 million of that deal. The Yankees will absorb the rest. Giancarlo Stanton also has an opt-out in 2020. But why would you not want to stay with the Yankees? But we'll see how this all plays out. Looking at this Yankees farm system and just how they pulled this off, I would imagine that Jeter and the Marlins would have went and asked for the top prospects, the Gleyber Torreses, the Chance Adams, the Clint Frazier's, Domingo Acevedos, any of those kind of guys, Estevan Florial, any of them. But they didn't. And the Yankees were able to just give up middling prospects, pitcher Jorge Guzman, and shortstop Jose Devers. So they didn't even get the big guns. Now, one can argue that Giancarlo Stanton kind of had Miami by the cojones because he had this no-trade clause, and he listed the teams that he would have waived the no-trade clause for. And that was the Yankees, the Dodgers, the Astros, and the Cubs. He wanted to be a part of a winning organization. Now, and he's claimed that he would have stuck around with the Marlins if they beefed up this roster. But Jeter knew going in, when he accepted this job, he was trying to tear everything down, clear salary, and build it up again. So the fact that he was kind of talking out of both sides of his mouth, saying that he didn't necessarily want to get rid of Stanton, it just doesn't really ring true to me. Because Stanton, having an over $300 million contract, he'd be the first person you're trying to shed. The first salary you're trying to get rid of. Now, I know Jeter is not used to being under scrutiny because he did everything right as a player here in New York, but now he's sort of under national scrutiny. I just think that entire situation down in Miami is a terrible situation to be involved with. I'm not sure why he bought the team, but that's the situation he is in now. They need to shed as much salary as possible, and we've seen that from the Marlins. They just traded Stanton. They can absorb the $22 million of Starlin Castro's contract, but even then I think they're going to try to move him by the end of wintertime. But Stanton didn't really want to be a part of a rebuild process. He had all the leverage with this no-trade clause. And there were teams that they could have worked deals out with. Stanton didn't want to be traded to those teams. Stanton had his 4 teams named. And you know there's a pipeline between Jeter and the Yankees. And it worked out. And as a Yankee fan, I'm incredibly happy that it did. Because this roster is going to be disgusting to watch over the next few seasons if everyone can stay healthy. And they still have the majority of top-notch prospects down there in the minors. The Yankees also traded Chase Headley to shed salary. It's shedded $13 million off of 2008's salary. They also traded Brian Mitchell to the Padres. They were able to acquire an outfielder, Jabari Blash. I'm not sure if Jabari Blash will have an impact on this team. He's not going to crack that outfield rotation because the Yankees outfield is absolutely stacked right now. When you look at the Yankees roster, we're looking at a starting 9. Brett Gardner, Aaron Judge, Giancarlo Stanton, cleanup, Gary Sanchez, Greg Bird, Didi Gregorius, Aaron Hicks, Ronald Torreyes, and Gleyber Torres being brought up to play second base. That is a scary lineup, especially if they play even close to what they've played last year. Another year under their belt, and now you add Stanton. You can't pitch around anybody in this lineup. It's not protected. Every single one of these players is a home run threat, and you're playing in a very home run friendly field with the short porch in right field. Gardner, Judge, Stanton, Sanchez, Bird, Gregorius, Hicks, Torreyes, and Torres. That's disgusting. You look at the starters, and that's what the Yankees need to find right now. They said they are not done with their search and prospects and their search and acquiring talent. Cashman's come out and said that. When they're shedding salary, guys like Chase Headley. They're shedding the salary, sending it away. And I'm sure they would love to shed Jacoby Ellsbury's salary, but that is a lot of salary to shed. I'm sure they're looking at it and exploring it. But what they need to do is try to get another starter. And we know they had their eyes and their hearts set on a specific prospect who turned them down in Shohei Ohtani. They put together a nice presentation for him. He said he didn't want to be east of the Mississippi. So he went to the Giants. And it turns out he has a strain in his UCL, his pitching elbow, which is also known as Tommy John surgery. Now, does he need Tommy John surgery yet? No, but it's a strain, so it's something to monitor. And everybody loves this guy. He's heralded out there in Japan. He's one of the top pitchers, but we've seen pitching prospects come and flare out, especially foreign ones as well. But the Giants still have Tanaka. It's not 100% confirmed if CeCe's going to be back as a Yankee, because I know other people are pursuing him. Maybe they'll give him a 2-year deal as opposed to the 1-year deal the Yankees will more than likely try to offer him. But our ace is going to be Severino, and you have Tanaka at 2 and Gray at 3, with Montgomery being your 4. Just you need to land a 5th and a 6th reliable starter. Now, the 6th would be one of those guys who could be a bullpen guy, sort of like an Adam Warren who can come in and start if you need them to. But that's what the Yankees really need right now to really secure the quote-unquote favorites of the American League. Look at me sitting here talking about baseball. But hey, the Yankees are going to lead the league in home runs, but they'll more than likely lead the league in strikeouts as well. I know Stanton has been better with it recently, but Judge strikes out a lot. But he also makes up for it by hitting a lot of home runs. When you look at Giancarlo's stats this past year, he had 59 home runs, the only person with more home runs than Aaron Judge. 132 RBIs. It's wild when you think about it. 168 hits, 123 runs. You're taking this guy and you're putting him in a lineup with the talent of the Yankees right now, the youth of the Yankees right now. The Yankees got to land a pitcher, man. This could be a great year. My one concern, I guess you could say, is last year, the Yankees had no expectations. They had absolutely no expectations going into the season. And we remember, everyone was shocked when they were this good. We weren't even really talking about Aaron Judge being a major league prospect before the season. It was like, yeah, he can go up, but he struggled at the end of the year. He strikes out a lot. And then his concentration and the way he was able to put the bat on the ball and put the ball in play was something that was so vastly different than it was the year prior. So vastly different. And everybody was all over the Mets. It was all about the Mets. But the Mets dealt with injuries, and I feel bad for good old Terry. And we were all sitting there looking at the Yankees. The Yankees had an over-under last year going into the season at 83.5. And the Mets had one, I want to say it was around 90, I think. Well, the Yankees crushed it. They had 91 wins. So if you bet the over, you were happy. But the expectations were low on this team. Now they will not be. The expectations are going to be sky high. It's how these players deal with it. You know the baseball season is an incredible grind. That's one thing that's a little bit concerning because there is a lot of youth here. Sanchez, Judge. Yeah, you got to rely on these veterans, guys like Gardner. Even Gregorius, who is young, is somewhat of a veteran right now on this team because there is a lot of youth. And you can't suffer big injuries to your pitching staff. You just can't. You're going to need Dellin Betances to play much better than he played last year. You're going to need Aroldis Chapman to play much better than he did last year. Now, Chapman had his moments, but he also struggled in big parts. We need Canely to play up to the level that he played this year. David Robertson to maintain his level of play. That bullpen is going to be very important because you don't want Tanaka, who has had UCL issues in the past, to play 7 innings a game. You want these guys to play 5, then rely on a bullpen that can get you to the 7th inning. That's where you can bring in Betances Chapman for the 8th and the 9th. But there's depth here on this team. And you could DH Judge or Stanton. give them a break from playing in the field. You still have Ellsbury. Hopefully the Yankees can shed that salary, but if they don't, he's another person who can come into the lineup and play well. A veteran. Also somebody who's fast, who can steal bases. Clint Frazier, another outfielder who can play. You can rest these guys. They don't have to play every damn game. Obviously, third base is sort of an issue right now. It's looking like Torreyes could be the starter. You could bring one of the young guys up. Andujar, one of those kind of guys. Or you can look to see if there's anybody else. We know Greg Bird needs to stay healthy. He's dealt with injuries significantly. So that's another individual that you must try to keep healthy. Because you know he has that skill set, especially on this roster. He's going to be your, sixth most reliable batter? And we've seen him be very reliable at the plate before. We've also seen him struggle. I just think it's incredibly exciting, but the Yankees are going to have to live up to these expectations. Something they did not have to do last year because nobody expected them to do anything. I'm excited for it, though. I'm excited for the season, the grind. Now you have Aaron Boone as your manager. You let Joe Girardi go. That's a risk by Brian Cashman. I'm guessing that they never saw eye to eye with Joe Girardi. Probably didn't like the fact that Joe Girardi might not have related to these young players as well. Maybe he was a little bit too, quote-unquote, hard on them. You know, this generation of people in general, not just players, are a little bit softer than they used to be. And I don't think that's too ridiculous of a thing to say. Especially when the team is very analytically driven. They want to rely on the numbers, what the analytic department, the front office says. And Boone has to listen to them. And Girardi might have been more of the rely on your gut kind of guy. Boone has never managed before, and he literally, as Michael Kay has said, has inherited a Lamborghini. A freaking Lamborghini. Usually, when you start driving, drive some Jalopia. You drive some Nissan Sentra like I do. But he gets this team, and then you add Giancarlo Stanton on top of it. Congrats, Aaron Boone. But man, if he doesn't figure out a way to balance these personalities, manage this game, if it's the 7th inning and he has to take a pitcher out, and it's kind of a questionable decision and it doesn't work out, he's going to have to answer those questions, just like Joe did. And if it doesn't work out, Cashman, this is a risk. This is a huge risk by Brian Cashman. But he's gotten it done before. He's making moves. I just want the Yankees to get one more reliable pitcher to add to this rotation. That's my number one want for this team right now. But man, you have to be happy if you're a Yankee fan. And if you are in the AL East, if you're a Red Sox, if you're an Orioles, if you're a Rays fan, my, are you pissed? And if you're a Mets fan, you're very pissed because the Yankees always seem to do this. Acquire talent because they have the payroll to take on that contract. And it's a lot of money. You still got the Marlins to pay $30 million, but that is a lot of money to take on. That's why they got to shed this salary. We're going to see some more moves. We're going to have more additions. And Yankee fans, enjoy this. Enjoy this. Hopefully this is going to be another dynasty. Hopefully we'll be talking about Aaron Judge, Gary Sanchez, Didi Gregorius, Clint Frazier in the near future. Just like we used to talk about the studs, the core four, and the Bernie Williams of the world, Tino Martinez, the Scott Brosias. You can go back to Chad Curtis. Remember him? We'll see, though. A lot of baseball to be played. A lot of injuries can happen. We've seen that with this team before. But as of right now, you have to be happy as a Yankee fan. Alrighty, that is it for football, and I hope you enjoyed my rants about the New York Knicks and the young talent there, along with what the Rangers need to do. And that's win. You need to get as many points as possible, and the Yankees' bright future, hopefully. For myself, for you, I'm out of here. Bye-bye now, guys.